Good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I am your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. On the broadcast this morning, we'll be talking with Nick Pelham from the Steuben County Fair. Now, the Steuben County Fair kicks off today with harness races. I want to give a fair warning. We recorded that interview with Nick Pelham on Friday. So you'll see a lot of rain in the background, but it looks like it may be a beautiful day for the fair today. Wednesday is when all the kind of fair festivities kick off, meaning the rides and the games. But harness racing kicking off the event today. So that'll be coming up in a little bit. We've got a couple messages to get to. If you were hit by the storm, I would like to hear from you as well. So feel free at any time. That number on the bottom of your screen. Here's a comment from a viewer. Frankly Speaking with Frank Acom is my morning therapy relief from the mainstream flood of agenda-driven nonsense. Thank you for your sensibleness and being a politically calming therapist for us. Oh, that's very nice. Thank you so much. I had to read that one. You know I had to read that one. That's the rules. Here's another comment from a different viewer. They need to put Kamala's face over Slim Pickens, cackling as she rides the bomb into a map of the U.S. Slim Pickens, there's a name I haven't heard in quite some time. Of course, referencing the movie Dr. Strangelove there. With so many great movies with Slim Pickens. We also have received a message from a viewer having trouble with his voter registration confirmation. And this has been ongoing since around the debate, so a little over a month ago. I wonder how many people who have registered as Republicans are having this trouble. Though I have made the Trump camp aware of this, I've heard nothing from them. I'm getting really angry. Well, keep us updated. Thank you for the messages on that. I will not be able to attend with you, but if you do go to the election board, let me know how it goes. We've got a couple waves coming in early this morning. You guys are kicking off early on a Monday. I know very often I try to highlight people like Tiffany Henyard, the super mayor, self-proclaimed super mayor in Dolton, Illinois. Here's another example of why you need to know who you are voting for. A New York City councilwoman, a socialist, Tiffany Caban, has amassed nearly $500 in traffic tickets despite pushing an anti-car agenda. A far-left New York City councilwoman who ran for office on an anti-car agenda and pushed a crackdown on dangerous driving is a road menace who's racked up 4 speeding tickets in a little more than a year. Tiffany Caban was slapped with 7 traffic tickets totaling $490 in fines and late fees since November of 2022, including 4 in the past 13 months alone, for being caught on camera speeding in school zones. The remaining summons on the politician's black Chevy Cruze include 2 for blocking fire hydrants and another for parking in a no-standing zone. So different rules for different people. I'm sure as a socialist New York City councilwoman, she did not feel that those no-standing zones or fire hydrant rules applied to her. Councilman Robert Holden said New Yorkers are tired of the self-righteous, sanctimonious, anti-public safety elected officials who push their do-as-I-say, not-as-I-do agendas, demanding we abandon our cars while they drive everywhere and flout the very laws they impose on us. Just another example of politicians and why you need to know who you are voting for. Not that you would necessarily have voted for a socialist, but something to keep in mind. Now, Hezbollah has fired, there's no segue here. Hezbollah has fired 30 rockets towards Israel as the threat of greater conflict in the region remains high. This is kind of an update. We had heard as early as last Monday there could be an attack. Hezbollah fired about 30 rockets from Lebanon toward northern Israel last night as tensions in the region remain high. The series of rockets were launched after an Israeli airstrike in the southern part of Lebanon injured 12 people. According to reports, the Iran-backed terror organization said it launched the attack in support of the Palestinian people in war-torn Gaza and in retaliation for the Israeli strike in southern Lebanon. Well, these waves coming in this morning. Israeli forces said there were no injuries from the more than 24 Hezbollah rockets as some fell in open space. Now, dozens of anti-Israel demonstrators gathered in Brooklyn to glorify the assassinated Hamas boss, Ismail Haniyeh. In the most recent escalations by the Zionists and U.S. imperialist partners, Ismail Haniyeh, the head of the political bureau of Hamas, was murdered in Tehran, a young man shouted as he read from his phone with a painting of the felled terror leader. Haniyeh was the top Palestinian negotiator and has been for the past 2 decades. By murdering the person leading the ceasefire negotiations, the enemy has made it clear that its only goal is to extend its barbaric rule and ethnic cleansing of Palestinians by exterminating Palestinians on their indigenous homeland. The demonstration was held in Bay Ridge, home to one of the biggest Arab American populations in the 5 boroughs. So it should come as no surprise that the polling now shows that Trump and the GOP are eyeing a record share of the Jewish vote because of this consistent anti-Israel, anti-Semitic refrain coming from the Democrat Party. Now, it's not me saying that. If you recall, Van Jones, former Obama advisor, saying now that the Democrat Party is marbled with this anti-Semitic bigotry, former President Donald Trump and the rest of the GOP ticket could win a record share of Jewish voters come November. Even some Democrats agree. Growing Jewish support for Republicans is being fueled by the voters' disgust over rising anti-Semitism and hard-left Democrats' hostility towards Israel. Quote, President Trump has a chance to get the largest share of Jewish vote ever, Trump campaign pollster John McLaughlin said. Anti-Semitism is a real issue. Historically, Democrats running for the White House receive roughly 70% or more of the Jewish vote, and Republicans 30% or less. Republican former presidents Ronald Reagan and Dwight Eisenhower had the best showing among Jewish voters, and the pair only captured about 40% of the vote apiece. McLaughlin predicted an increase in Jewish support for Trump this year in battleground states such as Pennsylvania, Michigan, Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia. He said the boost also would help candidates in the down-ballot races, as well as House contests and 6 swing seats in New York suburbs that are home to some of the largest Jewish neighborhoods in the country. So that's just a quick update. Keep those waves coming in. Thank you so much. Did you happen to catch any of the interviews that J.D. Vance gave over the weekend? I think I saw all of them. I'm not sure exactly how many he did. I was watching kind of a recap. And again, it just proved, I was thinking as I watched it, and I know I've said this on the program numerous times, but a Democrat could never handle being a Republican for a day. The nastiness of those questions towards Vance. At one point, he even had to say to one of the reporters, or journalists, or whatever they call themselves, that the first 7 minutes has been nothing about abortion. They have the look of disdain on their face the moment they begin the interview. I thought personally, J.D. Vance did a wonderful job in the interviews, and I had not, in full disclosure, really seen that many sit-down interviews with him, and I just thought his responses and his reactions were phenomenal. I thought he did a very good job. Did you see them? What did you think? What did you think of the reporters? And again, we'll talk about it more in depth with some specifics, but just the nastiness and the pure contempt on their face for J.D. Vance. Now, we've been talking about the real threat of our military essentially lacking in preparation. And we've talked about it a lot on this program as the Middle East is on fire. You see Ukraine and Russia. Well, the U.S. Navy warship production has hit a 25-year low and has now fallen behind China. I know, I'm jumping through a lot of topics this morning. That's why you tune in early. That's why we're getting so many waves. Navy shipbuilding has had its worst production in 25 years, putting the U.S. behind rival China in production pace. Eric Labs, a longtime naval analyst at the Congressional Budget Office, said, I don't see a fast, easy way to get out of this problem. It's taken us a long time to get into it. He said that the shipbuilding was now in a terrible state. The comments came as last-minute design changes, cost overruns, and an inability to recruit and retain employees to build ships has slowed production. At the same time, the U.S. faces expanding global threats at sea. The ABC News report cites a Marionette Marine contract as just one of the many examples of the struggles of the Navy to meet production. This coming from the New York Post. According to the report, the shipmaker is under contract to build 6 guided missile frigates with an option to build 4 more, but with its current workforce can only produce 1 ship per year. just something else to keep in mind. Now, we're going to talk here in just a moment a couple New York State issues. What did you think of some of the pundits and the talking heads over the weekend and what they had to say? Yes, Kamala Harris, momentum, trajectory. Nothing but good news on the Harris front and nothing but bad news for Trump. I saw a piece this morning, the worst 3 weeks of Trump's campaign were the last 3 weeks. And the Harris has the momentum. She has the stronghold. And this goes, again, to prove our point. I know we talked about it with former Congressman Joe Sempolinski. They just need to run out the clock. Now, who's they? That's the media and the Harris campaign. They can run the same campaign that Biden ran back during COVID, which is don't talk with the media, just give a couple rallies with telepromptered speeches, and she just has to see it through for less than 3 months, less than 90 days. And the media seems to have no interest in asking her questions. Harris even saying, well, I might do a sit-down interview before the end of the month. That was set on either the 8th or the 9th. So only able to plan one sit-down interview, which we know will be from a friendly place without the questions such as J.D. Vance received over the weekend. It'll be a sugar-coated type interview. So we look forward to that, I guess, to find out. And I would think the media, if nothing else, would say, wait a minute, not a single person has voted for Harris. Since she has been given the nomination, she has not put up her policy proposals on her website. So essentially, we know nothing about her other than from what she says at a scripted event. Shouldn't the media be demanding questions? I mean, no one voted for this lady. Shouldn't we know where she stands, what she stands for or against? But again, the media demanding interviews with Vance, Trump, but seem to be fine with leaving Harris alone. As a matter of fact, there was criticism last week that Trump just isn't doing as much as he usually does. This could be a bad sign for him, where Harris just has to give a couple speeches, and it's as if she walks on water. We'll keep those comments coming in. We got to take our first short break, and then we'll be back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. As I mentioned, Nick Pelham from the Steuben County Fair will be joining us in a little bit. And on tomorrow's program, we'll learn more about India Day. India Day is a tradition here in Corning. You may recall I had an interview last year as well. We'll find out all about, there it is, India Day, coming up on the 17th. At 4 o'clock right here on Centerway Square in Corning, So that'll be on tomorrow's program. Then Wednesday, fan favorite. I know I say that about nearly everyone. If I don't say that about you, you may be concerned. No. It's just fan favorite. Sheriff Allard from Steuben County will be joining us. A couple comments before we move along to other topics. Let's see here. Get the last one in. I watched the Harris rally the other day, and they really did a good job. A little bit scary competition. Yes, there is real competition there because there's no pushback by media. It's all talking about their momentum. Continuing, someone should come up with a virtual Rush Limbaugh. We need him back. A single daily national figure is desperately needed to speak for us. Trump is the next best thing, but the media hides him. Yes, the media doesn't cover him any longer, doesn't cover his rallies like they do with Harris. I don't think there'll ever be another Limbaugh, unfortunately. Governor Hochul, did you see this? And former Governor Andrew Cuomo were scheduled to appear at a Hamptons event this weekend. Interesting. I don't know what came of this. It was a political fundraiser where tickets were going for up to $15,000, according to an invitation received by Page 6 at the New York Post. Former Governor Andrew Cuomo will appear Sunday. Got cut off at where he was at a charity event to raise for funds for a nonprofit, Never Again Now, hosted by Daryl and Erwin Simon. Hochul on Friday declared a statewide emergency in New York as remnants of Tropical Storm Debbie were causing severe flooding. Yes, I see she was somewhere near coming out of Rochester first. Governor Hochul held a live briefing Sunday in the aftermath of major flooding in Steuben County, specifically around the town of Canisteo. A state of emergency in Steuben County was declared Friday as a result of those storms, and several areas were asked to evacuate. Hochul said she sent more than 100 members of the National Guard to be help of those in the areas hit the hardest, like Steuben County. Were you impacted by the storm? I'd like to know, and I'd like to hear from you. Cleanup kits, water bottles were to be distributed to Steuben County residents impacted by the flooding. Tuscarora Creek flash flooding caused significant damages to the Jasper Troopsburg High School, Hochul said. The students who thought they were returning to the school that perhaps their parents went to are now displaced yet again. The school was slated to reopen after it had to be shut down due to Tropical Storm Fred 3 years ago. So finally due to be reopened, and a storm hit. I heard someone say it was very much deja vu. Moss Family Farms was also picking up the pieces in the aftermath of Friday's storm. Despite preparing well in advance, the owner said there was little more that could have been done to save them from the sheer force of the floods. The owner of the Moss Family Farms lost 400 acres of corn, 200 acres of soybeans, hundreds of acres of hay and equipment, said Hochul. He's, meaning the farm owner, is worried they're not going to have enough crops to feed the animals through the winter. These are real problems that need real solutions. State grants of up to $50,000 are available to homeowners impacted by the floods to help them cover the cost of damages not being covered by their insurance. The funding comes from the State Homes and Community Renewal Agency's Emergency Repair Program. This is a new program. This program did not exist 3 years ago when Fred hit this area. It exists now. So did you get impacted by the flood? I would like to hear from you. Good morning, Frank. Oh, hey, good morning. Do you know when Corning first celebrated India Day? I don't know, and I should know. I know it came up during the interview, and full disclosure, it was a pre-recorded interview. We recorded it just the other day, and I think I brought it up there. So it's been within the last 5 to 10 years, probably. But we'll find out more on tomorrow's broadcast when we learn all about India Day here in Corning. How am I doing on time? I'm doing good. So New Yorkers, we heard from a viewer who was struggling to find out if they're registered to vote. If you have that issue, let me know. But New Yorkers are getting creative with their write-in candidates. In our great democracy's elections, we can vote for whomever we want through the magic of write-in ballots, even if the person we are voting for is in fact not a person at all. So this is coming. I don't know why they put this together. I thought it was kind of clever. It's cityandstateny.com. In New York's 10th district, Clark Kent received a vote. In New York's 14th, which is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's district, Fiona Apple, the singer, and Eric Andre each received a vote. In the Senate District 59, this one might not be a joke. Anthony Weiner received a vote in the 59th Senate District, as well as Mickey Mouse. That's interesting about Anthony Weiner. I wonder if that's the district he lives in, because I could see him writing his own name in on a ballot, couldn't you? Out of the 37th Assembly District, Homer Simpson received a vote, as well as Mickey Mouse. In Assembly District 69, Errol Lewis and Leon Thomas received a vote. I don't know why I'm reading all these. In the 71 District of Assembly, Cynthia Nixon, who actually ran for governor at one time, and John Wick. And then to wrap this up, in the 41st, Bruce Wayne. I don't know who this is. But in the 50th District, Vapor Boy Vince receiving one vote. In the 52nd, Edward Snowden and Thomas Jefferson. And in the 34th, Mickey Mouse. Why did I bring that up? Why not? We're bringing up some New York State issues. We got so many comments coming in, so many waves. Thank you for joining us this morning. When we come back, Biden insinuating over the weekend that, yes, indeed, it was Pelosi and Democrats that pushed him out. So, again, it's the elites. I would just think this would be so frustrating as a Democrat, that the elites have the final say for who you vote for, who you get to hear from, who is in and who's out. It's not about the voters. It's about the smoke-filled rooms, the elite telling you who you have to support if you are a Democrat. I don't know. Doesn't sit well with me, but it seems to sit well with the Democrat Party. Did you happen to watch any of the interviews with J.D. Vance? We'll talk about that as well. We've got quite a few things here about Harris's campaign. Not yet a press conference held by the vice president, saying that she may do a sit-down interview before the end of the month, which, keep in mind, there's only less than 90 days. before we begin to vote. So she is, as we predicted, running the campaign of staying in the basement. Yes, she gives the rallies. They are well attended. I know Trump made the media go crazy when he said, well, I bet you they're AI generated these crowds. But she is receiving pretty large crowds. But yeah, her and Walz not responding to any questions, not having any type of interview. You know, if they do, they won't ask about Walz's service or anything to that extent. So right now, she just has to get it into the barn, so to speak. She just has to wait them out around less than 90 days. And that's apparently what we're going to be seeing, because I don't see any change coming anytime soon, and the media is fine with it. She doesn't even have to put up her policy proposals and where she stands on the issues on her website. Why would she? Why do we deserve to know what she stands for when she never received a single vote from a Democrat to be the nominee for their party for president? But I guess that is all fine and hunky-dory with the media. But let's take a short break. We'll read your comments when we come back. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. And we are back, broadcasting live from the SRC studio here on Market Street morning. Thank you so much for joining us on this morning. In addition to Happy Live. JD Vance speak numerous times. JD is a very authentic and compassionate speaker. He understands how to fix all the destruction that the Democratic Party has done to the United States the last 4 years. I was very impressed the way he handled himself in those media interviews over the weekend because they were not coming from friendly places. You could see the disdain and the hatred for Mr. Vance and for former President Trump just on the reporters' faces. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on, but I would agree with your statement. Another comment from a different viewer. Obviously, the lack of transparency in the Democratic Party should be cause for concern, but apparently it is not a cause of concern among Democrats. Case in point is that I just saw on the news shortly before your program that claims a 5-point lead by Harris over Trump. The poll was conducted by Siena College. I just can't wrap my head around how a reasonable person would not be concerned. I think it's a scenario of these people don't want Trump. And it doesn't matter, and going back to that story we had where John Wayne received a vote, which that one might not be a bad choice. Bruce Wayne, Thomas Jefferson, people are just fed up and they just will vote for anybody just so they can say they voted. In this case, they do not like Trump. So they do not want to vote for Trump. So it's anybody but Trump. So they don't mind the way the Democratic elites pick their candidates. It's not an issue for them. I guess they like being told what to do. That's the only thing that we can surmise from what we're seeing. Now, President Biden admitted pressure from Democrats contributed to his decision to drop out. A number of my Democrat colleagues in the House and Senate thought that I was going to hurt them in the races. And I was concerned if I stayed in the race, that would be the topic. You'd be interviewing me about why did Nancy Pelosi say, and I thought it may be a real distraction. The polls we were showed that it was neck and neck race. It would have been down to the wire. Now, the former speaker also continues to deny she had a role in it, but not really. Now, I was really asking for a better campaign, she said. We did not have a campaign that was on the path to victory. Members knew that in their districts. When I ran the first time, I thought of myself as being this is back to Biden, thought of myself as being a transition president. I can't even say how old I am. It's hard for me to get out of my mouth. But things got moving so quickly, it didn't happen. And the combination was that I thought it was a critical issue for me. Still, it's not a joke, maintaining this democracy. Not a joke. So we still got that going for him. Now, Pelosi questioned whether Biden wrote that letter saying he'd stay in the 2024 race. Can I Nancy Pelosi knows this. Of course he didn't write that letter. When you see politicians say, I've written a letter to Governor Hochul, or whoever the case may be, they did not. Someone in their staff did, and they signed their name to it. I didn't accept the letter as anything but a letter, Pelosi said. I mean, there are some people who are unhappy with the letter. Let me say it differently. Some said that some people were unhappy with the letter. I'll put it in somebody else's mouth. It didn't sound like Joe Biden to me. It really didn't. So now she's suggesting that people behind the scenes were keeping him afloat. Now, they asked, is there a way to bring back your friendship with Biden? Jen Psaki asked Pelosi. In our family, we have 3 generations of love for Joe Biden. My husband and I, of course, we've known him for a very long time. Respect him, love him and Jill. He and Jill are so remarkable and their family. Our kids have always loved them. I had pictures with him from our children growing up and now our grandchildren growing up. But the most important thing we have to do is to win the election, just to sustain his legacy and have the legacy be to do even more in the presidency and the vice presidency of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. So not really answering there, did he? Now, this goes back a few weeks ago, and I mentioned this with Joe Sempolinski last week, where Dana Bash asked the question, is everything okay with your relationship with Biden? And she said, you'd have to ask him, but I hope so. Can you think of one friend in your life where someone said, hey, how's your relationship with your friend? And you would start by saying, you would have to ask him? Now, President Biden, Barack Obama, and the Clintons are going to speak at the Democratic National Convention. I'm fascinated by this with Bill Clinton. I guess the whole Me Too movement has dried up because at one point, even Senator Gillibrand threw him under the bus. And so he looked like kind of a social pariah. Not so much anymore. He's giving speeches. He had that big fundraiser with Biden and for Biden with Obama that raised $25 million. So I'm a little confused when he just became a popular act again. But Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and the Clintons are going to speak at the Democrat National Convention, which begins on the 19th. Man, it seems like a long time in between conventions, doesn't it? A source familiar said the former President Jimmy Carter's grandson is also confirmed to be speaking as a representative of his grandfather. Now, it is typical for former presidents and high-profile party leaders to speak at conventions, but it is unusual for a sitting president to give a speech at a convention. Lyndon Johnson, who did not run for re-election in '68, did not even attend the Democratic National Convention that year. Interesting. All right, we've got to take another break. A lot of comments coming in. Keep those comments coming in. This is great. We're going to talk about the Harris campaign coming up a little bit later on. We're going to hear from Nick Pelham from the Steuben County Fair. 205th Steuben County Fair starts today with the harness races. I will be there on Friday in the Republican booth, but I don't have the time in front of me, so I'll let you know later in the week if you want to stop by and say hi. But let's take that short break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back. And we are back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson Stew. Yes, this morning is moving quickly. A couple comments from viewers. However, I would be interested to know what questions were asked in order to justify the aforementioned result, meaning the poll that shows Harris up 5%. I would too. This is not a time where I trust polling, especially in this instance where you have an opportunity for the media to show this momentum for Harris so they can continue to say, look at this momentum. So much money came in. And you said, well, we know why so much money came in because it dried up when Biden was looking so unhealthy. So then the floodgates open. So the momentum's there with the money. Then, the polls are showing great numbers. And now, even though we're told over and over again that the number of people at a Trump rally is anecdotal, it doesn't mean anything. If you recall that back in 2016, now it means everything because she is packing in the crowds. But another comment from a different viewer. I don't mind if the Democrats say they're ahead because that's what happened to Hillary when Trump won. Yeah, they get a little, what's the old saying, fat and happy? Maybe. Another comment from a viewer concerning Biden's legacy. If said legacy is comprised of him beating Trump, then it's a shameful one. His legacy should be that he has ruined the economy, compromised national security, and so on. Well, what's interesting about that, to the Democrats, the only part of his legacy that matters is that he defeated Trump. That's why I find this very interesting. I've talked with friends about this because if Harris ends up losing, do you realize the biggest benefactor, other than the American people, the biggest benefactor of that would be Biden, who could then come out and say, see, I told you, you should have stuck with me. I have a history. I beat Trump. So I think if you could be a fly on the wall secretly because the way they stabbed him in the back, no longer friends with Pelosi, Obama, others pushing him out, I bet you secretly, if you could ask him and he could be straightforward with you, he probably wants to see Trump win. Now you're saying you're crazy, Frank, but that's about his legacy. He could come out and say, I told you so. Guys, I told you, you should have stayed with me. we were going to win that thing. I have a history of beating Trump. So I would not be surprised if he goes into that voting booth and votes for Trump. Did you see the Secret Service could they be worse at their PR right now? They have apologized to a Massachusetts salon owner because they broke into the salon to use the bathroom. U.S. Secret Service agents taped over a security camera and broke into a Massachusetts salon in order to use the restroom ahead of a recent Kamala Harris fundraiser, the business owners have complained. Alicia Powers, owner of the 413 Salon in Pittsfield, said that she closed her business for the day on July 27th at the request of the Secret Service, due to it being behind the Colonial Theater, the venue where Harris was speaking. She said the agents had already been to her salon earlier in the week to survey the area for security purposes, but did not expect them to return after she had already locked up the building. Quote, they had a bunch of people in and out, doing a couple bomb sweeps. Again, totally understand what they have to do due to the nature of the situation. And at that point, my team felt like it was a little bit chaotic, and we just made the decision to close for Saturday. Security camera footage shared by Powers shows the moment a Secret Service agent approached the salon's door with a roll of tape and climbed on a chair to cover the lens. As a Twitter user said, Secret Service batting 1,000 at this point. A second video captured by another camera inside the shop shows multiple emergency medical and law enforcement professionals entering the salon, with one even appearing to take something small off Powers' desk. Over the course of nearly 2 hours, multiple people were seen coming in without authorization from the business owner. The salon's security alarm can be heard going off for the entire time in the background of the footage. Powers said that the door appeared to have been picked when she returned to find the salon unlocked and tape still covering the camera. Isn't that nice? Yeah, let's just keep the salon wide open. There are several people in and out of here for about half an hour, just using my bathroom, the alarm's going off, using my counter with no permission. And then, when they were done using the bathroom for 2 hours, they left and left my building completely unlocked and did not take the tape off the camera. Wow. Think of the danger there. Someone walking in, no footage. Now, we're going to talk, and that was during a Harris fundraiser. Boy, the coverage this morning, as I went to the outlets that you don't want to go to. I do that for you. CNN, the 2024 campaign will now turn on whether Trump can blunt Harris's soaring start. Now, we know there has been no real pushback on Harris. She's had it made thus far because the media is just happy to have someone in there that they believe can beat Trump. So they are very happy with Harris, and they're not wanting to do anything to stop that momentum. So her not giving any type of press conference, fine with them. They don't want to do anything to hurt the Harris campaign and the momentum. And proof to point, look at the way they treated J.D. Vance during those interviews yesterday. There is such a hatred and a disdain for the Trump-Vance ticket that you can see it literally on their face. So do you think those people care if Harris does anything that could hurt her? Because we know off the cuff, she does not do well. That's just a matter of fact. Go back to 2020, watch the debates. Watch anytime she's asked for something off the cuff. I thought she even gave a weird response to the one question she did answer from reporters about Walz's military service. Even the way she worded that was strange. She comes up, and I know it's been said a million times, with these word salads with no real substance. I don't think the media want an interview with her because they're afraid if one of those come out, it will be reported on, and they cannot do anything to blunt this momentum. They just need her to bring it in the barn in about 3 months. They will be very happy. I mean, let's face it. She said, I'm looking to do a debate before the end of the month. Think of that. I mean, I pointed to the fact, because we had him on the program, Joe Sempolinski. He was giving press conferences right up to the last moment he was in Washington, doing numerous press events every day. And he was the congressman for the 23rd Congressional District of New York. If he could do it, I believe the president the vice president, can explain why she wants to be president when not a single person in her party voted for her to be president, the presidential nominee. That alone warrants some type of discussion. And again, if you go to her website, unless something's changed within the last few minutes, no public policy, what's the word I'm looking for? Nothing to address her policy stance on her website. It's just about fundraising, I think there might be a little biography there, but nothing about where she actually stands on the issue, and I think they're fine with that too. They don't want to do anything to hurt their campaign. That's why they will be quiet on Israel. That's why they'll be quiet on the major issues. So the 2024 campaign will now turn on whether Trump can blunt Harris's soaring start. That's Stephen Collinson. Donald Trump's campaign, which has whiffed at its early attacks on Kamala Harris's new presidential campaign, will grapple this week for a more effective foothold after the vice president transformed an election of stunning surprises. The ex-president has deployed some of his most trusted political tools, targeting racial identity, creating alternative realities, flinging insults, and gaslighting. On Sunday, for instance, he spread a new false conspiracy theory over the size of Harris's rally crowd in Michigan last week. When ex-president called Harris dumb at a Montana rally Friday night, or falsely claimed last month that she, quote, happened to turn black, he may have delighted his base voters. But those kind of comments risk alienating women and swing state voters, as well as reversing the gains he has made among minorities that he had proudly highlighted for months. Trump's undisciplined news conference last week and a week, well, what's the difference between that statement and what Harris is doing? No news conference. So Trump's undisciplined news conference last week and a weekend of venting also suggests that the Republican nominee is far from coming to terms with the shift in a race that seemed to be heading in his direction 3 weeks ago when bullish Republicans left their convention predicting a landslide. But a swing state tour by Harris and her new running mate, Tim Walz, conjured euphoria not experienced by Democrats in years. Euphoria, folks. Trump's fuming that his victory in his debate with Biden only led to a new battle, one he's more in danger of losing. In 3 weeks, Harris has created a potential turning point, offering voters a burst of optimism after a dark period in modern history with her mantra that Americans, quote, don't want to go back to the chaos and acrimony of Trump's terms. Trump is still flailing over his new opponent. This is the mainstream media. America is yet to learn exactly what a Harris presidency entails. Yeah, no problem. We don't need to know about her background. The only thing we've heard from is that Walz misspoke about his record. Can you imagine if this was any other candidate? Oh, wow, I get to take a break. If this was any other candidate, it'd be the end of their candidacy. If it wasn't Walz being on Harris's ticket. Imagine if it was Vance lying about his military service. What that would do in past election seasons, what that would do if it were any Republican candidate. We've got a lot to talk about with the Harris campaign, so stay with us. Boy, this hour's moving fast, and I'm sure the second one will as well, so stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking. Get those comments in. And we are back. We're Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Thank you so much for joining us on this Monday morning edition. A comment from a viewer regarding Harris's scripted interviews. Many people have cell phones with sound and camera capabilities. People should utilize their phones to ask her hard questions and post the results on social media. I don't think they'll have the opportunity to either. I just don't think she's very interactive because right now it's very good for her to stay up on the stage, read from the teleprompter, and move on. I understand your point, though. If there were opportunities, I just don't believe there will be opportunities for that. Harris leans on the trappings of her office, says CNN, and Trump's own playbook in quest to win the White House. In her quest to defeat Trump, she's also taking a page out of the former president's own playbook and drawing his ire in the process. She didn't just walk onto the stage for one of her biggest rallies of the year last week outside Detroit. Instead, her team allowed anticipation to grow as Air Force Two slowly taxied into view of a crowded airport hangar with strains of Beyoncé's Run the World pulsing through the air. The choreography matched closely the types of events Trump held as president. His walkout song, God Bless the USA, now replaced by another Beyoncé song, Freedom, as Harris stepped from her plane. Has anyone noticed that Kamala cheated at the airport? Suggesting Harris had nobody waiting for her at the airport. Anyway, enough about that. So Kamala Harris is now being recast as a centrist. She's actually pushing, and I saw some people very angry about this. She actually stole Trump's no tax on tips idea. But in 2019, the watchdog site GovTrack rated Kamala Harris the most liberal member of the Senate. They have since taken that down because they said, well, just 1 year isn't really fair to judge her. I wonder why that happened. She was the senator least likely to sign on to bipartisan legislation. Look for the write-up now, however, and you'll find a page not found. GovTrack deleted it. It's just one example of how Harris, once a hero of progressives, has been, along with a helpful media, hiding all her far-left positions from voters. A centrist Democrat has a better chance of winning the election, so a centrist she shall be. But it doesn't make much sense to find the real politician, not the chameleon she presents. But it doesn't take much searching to find the real politician, not the chameleon she presents. Here are some of Harris's beliefs that most Americans disagree with, and the press is so desperate to hide. She would not ban fracking, Harris's campaign told Politico. Trump's false claims about fracking bans are an obvious attempt to distract from his own plans. The truth? Donald Trump claims were not false. During the 2020 presidential campaign, Harris said repeatedly she wanted to ban the gas and oil extraction method, which has become an economic lifeblood of Pennsylvania and other states. Not only that, asked if she would also favor a banning offshore drilling, she said yes. Harris's campaign also confirmed that the vice president no longer supports a single-payer health care system. That's quite the 180 from candidate Harris back in 2020. Let's eliminate all of that, she said at the time. Let's move on. Then, we continue. We know that our immigration system is broken and we know what it takes to fix it, she said last weekend in Vegas. Harris has never wanted to fix it before. She wanted to throw the whole thing out. She favored getting rid of ICE and even said that crossing the border illegally was no crime. Quote, we're not going to treat people who are undocumented who cross the border as criminals. It's not even fair to call this one a flip-flop. It's a straight-up lie. Harris's one clarification on what was broken was that we needed an earned pathway to citizenship, which we will reward the people who came here illegally. I don't want to go through all of this because we can point out this lie over time and again, all the lies and all the flip-flopping, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because the media is not going to hold her accountable. They don't want to do anything that could hurt this campaign. Listen, they covered up Biden's mental decline for, you say it, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, but for quite some time. They were able to cover up his mental decline or at least not talk about it. They're doing the same thing with her campaign for the next 3 months. You don't think they can cover up something for 3 years? They can't cover up something for 3 months? Usually when pundits refer to a media bubble, it suggests that a candidate is only reading and watching what he or she wants to hear and see. But this is a bubble created for Harris by some of the biggest press outlets in the nation, protecting her not only from hard questions, but also from the truth. She's too radical to get elected, and she needs to be carefully hidden, a chameleon to voters. All right, we got to take another short break. Wrapping up our number one. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. And we are back, wrapping up our number one with our number two just mere moments away. Let's go to some comments from viewers. Good morning, Frank. Good morning. I don't know if this is the proper forum for this, but I would like to thank everyone who has worked tirelessly to get our communities back as normal as possible. Utilities, public workers, etc. Tremendous job, and thank you. Well, thank you, Lynn. This is absolutely the proper forum for this. That's what this show is all about, community. That's why I've asked if anybody was affected by the storm. I would like to hear your story, and I could not agree more. An amazing job. I saw that many of our elected representatives were at that, for lack of a better word, press conference with Governor Hochul yesterday. But yes, the utility workers, the public workers, doing an amazing job out there. So we always thank them for what is sometimes a thankless job. So thank you very much. Another comment, joking but perfect Harris song for campaign song is Don't Worry, Be Happy. Her world policy. Yes, that Bobby McFerrin. Remember that hit, that one-hit wonder, Don't Worry, Be Happy, which will now be stuck in all of our collective heads probably the rest of the day. Thank you, viewer. But I don't disagree that seems to be the attitude. Don't worry, be happy. Continuing, if you think inflation is out of control now, can you imagine how much worse it'll get if we stop using fossil fuels? Couldn't agree more. That's why these destructive policies should be called out, but the media will not call out Harris's policies. And again, the media is fine with her having no policies whatsoever up on her website. Remember, not a single person voted for her from the Democrat Party to be the nominee. Yet, there she is. There was no primary process, so we didn't have the debates and the learning about her. No, there is no learning curve. It is right there, day one. She's got the momentum. She's got the money. She's got the best things in life going for her. you would almost think it is inevitable, just like her ultimate being picked by no voter whatsoever. The Democrat elites telling us it's all over but the shouting. 3 weeks into joining the race, Kamala Harris has yet to release her public policy. And keep in mind, I know she's been campaigning for 3 weeks, but she's been in office nearly 4 years. There were no policies on the website, even after changes were made to add Minnesota Governor Tim Walz to the ticket and onto the site. Harris is supposedly going to be rolling out some policies in the coming weeks. In the coming weeks, folks, we don't even have 3 months till Election Day. It is unbelievable. As a U.S. Senator from 2019 to 2021, she achieved the most left-wing record of any member of the upper chamber, exceeding even Socialist Senator Bernie Sanders. Though her campaign has tried to walk back some of her past positions, the candidate herself has not done so. At the moment, she's not running to achieve anything other than to achieve a set of identity firsts and to keep Donald Trump out of the White House. Yeah, and the sad thing is, they just have to run out the clock for 3 months. All right, we're going to talk more about this when we come back. Later on in the program, around 7:20, we're going to talk with Nick Pelham from the Steuben County Fair. That kicks off today with the harness races. What you may think of as fair festivities begin on Wednesday with the rides and the games and the like. So that's Wednesday. But on tomorrow's program, we're going to talk about India Day. India Day has been a tradition, as I said. I can't remember how many years a viewer called me on it, but it has been a few years now. I remember it back when I was in radio. It's a fun event coming up on the 17th at 4. So we'll talk with representatives of India Day on the program tomorrow. And then on Wednesday, get your questions in ahead of time. For Sheriff Jim Allard, he's going to join us. We've got a lot of questions for the sheriff. That's on Wednesday. So that's just the beginning. That's just me highlighting a few of the fun guests we'll have this week. As always, if you are new to the program, you see that number on the bottom of your screen. Feel free to reach out at any time with either questions, comments, concerns, criticisms. 607-358-3131. Now, we need to take this short break. When we come back, more on Harris's campaign. A few things here about Tim Walz, what we're learning about him. The Trump campaign as well. And I think that's going to probably cover it on this morning's show. So we still have a lot of time together. Sit back and relax. 1 hour left of Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back. Hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Excuse me, let me say that again. Live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. I'm your host, Frank Acom. Thank you to everybody joining us so far. Here's some more. So many waves and comments coming in this morning. Did you see that Kamala Harris was panned by some pundits for requiring an ID to enter her Arizona rally after she has equated voter ID laws as racist? Voter ID is racist, but you can't get into a Kamala rally without an ID, said Kevin Sorbo. So let me get this straight. Requiring ID to vote is racist, but requiring ID to attend a Kamala Harris rally is not racist. Kamala Harris requires photo ID to enter a private campaign event. Kamala Harris doesn't want to require a photo ID to vote. Kamala Harris doesn't want to require ID before crossing our border. Weird, said political commentator Gunther Eagleman. How tedious is that weird getting? 21 days. So this came out yesterday. So now 22 days. Harris has yet to hold a press conference, even though she is the presumptive Democrat nominee. Harris became the de facto nominee after Biden endorsed her on July 21st when he dropped out of the race, and she officially clinched the nomination last week. She has been busy on the campaign trail, spoken at various events, and given informal remarks to reporters at various points, but hasn't done a formal press conference or wide-ranging interview in the 3 weeks that have followed. Make no mistake, if she goes and gives an interview, it is not going to be some hard-hitting outlet like yesterday with Vance going to unfriendly territory to give those interviews. And if you don't think they're unfriendly, look at the disdain on those reporters' faces, asking him questions and pushing back on everything he said. She also said her team was trying to set up an interview by the end of the month. Boy, I would not trust a team that couldn't set up an interview by the end of the month. I think she said that around the 8th or the 9th. It is now the 12th. she hopes to do an interview by the end of August when she's the nominee that no one voted for, and there's only less than 3 months before Election Day. Last week, she made headlines by picking Walz as her running mate, but the two still have not been questioned formally in interviews or press conferences. It's gotten the attention of the GOP vice presidential candidate, J.D. Vance, who has implored the media to do better on the issue and get Harris to answer questions. Until she does, you guys have got to stop giving her a honeymoon and pretending that she is something she isn't, he said. She doesn't know how to do a news conference. She's not smart enough to do a news conference, said Trump. National Review senior writer Noah Rothman recently asked, when is Kamala Harris going to hold a press conference? The most revealing exposure to which a candidate can submit is a prolonged press conference, and that's precisely what Harris needs to do. Indeed, we know that she needs to do this because it's only a few weeks ago that Democratic political professionals and their allies insisted that was Biden had to do. That's what Biden had to do. She has not given a press conference. And yeah, I think she'll do an interview. It'll be from a friendly outlet and everything will be fine. She won't get any pushback on that or pushback on her policies. So yes, it should be a press conference. I don't think we'll see one. I'm still not confident that there will be that debate on September 10th. I know I said that in the past. I've been wrong in the past, but in my defense, I was right. Biden shouldn't have done the debate. He'd still be the candidate if he didn't do that debate. So I wasn't wrong. I just wasn't technically right either. Now, Michael Goodwin said the grumbling that Kamala Harris is avoiding reporters like the plague led to a headline on Fox News that demanded liberal media minions need to do their jobs. But you got to remember, as Michael Goodwin said, they are doing their jobs. Their assignment, as they see it, is to stop Donald Trump from becoming president, and no effort is being spared. If they had another goal, they would be furious as Harris ignores them and their questions. But meekly accepting her cold shoulder is all part of a dishonest day's work. They don't even mind when she says, yeah, maybe I'll do an interview by the end of the month. That should be, there should be outrage in media circles. They will do whatever it takes to get her elected, all of which means Trump shouldn't hold his breath waiting for Harris to be exposed during a rough round of interviews. He may be right, as he said Thursday, that she can't do a news conference. He said that during a long question and answer session he had held to draw a contrast with her. But he, too, misses the larger point. Harris could do an endless loop of interviews and press conferences, and it probably wouldn't matter. She'll choose friendly outlets where Democrats will press passes, will throw her big, juicy softballs. If she swings wildly and misses, they'll declare it a home run. If she dishes up some of those zany word salads, she'll be deemed a genius beyond the comprehension of ordinary mortals. And her annoying cackle will be proclaimed endearing. Yeah, they don't even report on the fact that 91% of the people that work for her quit. And it was all on conservative outlets, but really learning how bad things were behind the scenes. The media does not care. They just need to run out the clock for the next 2.5, 3 months. America is experiencing a remarkable series of events, featuring the shooting of the Republican candidate by a would-be assassin and the pressured removal of the Democratic president from his re-election campaign, yet the media hasn't blinked. They remain fixed on the prize of making certain Trump doesn't get back in the Oval Office. The mission includes turning away from the attempt to assassinate him. You don't have to be a historian to marvel at how little interest there is about the background and motivation of the 20-year-old shooter Thomas Crooks. Nor is there much demand about the Iranian plot to assassinate Trump that we recently learned had been broken up by the FBI just the day before the Pennsylvania shooting. Crooks reportedly had 3 foreign email accounts, but we are assured by anonymous official sources speaking to leftist outlets that there's no connection between the two plots. PBS, a reliable indicator of the radical mindset, put it this way, quote, U.S. officials acknowledged last month that a threat on Donald Trump's life from Iran prompted additional security in the days before a Pennsylvania rally in which Trump was injured by a gunman's bullet. That July 13th shooting, carried out by a 20-year-old Pennsylvania man, was unrelated to the Iranian threat, a law enforcement official said. So there was additional security in Pennsylvania, but still Crooks was able to fire at Trump from an open rooftop just 130 yards away. This, of course, is the same Secret Service that dropped its probe into a bag of cocaine found at the Biden White House because it couldn't find the perp in 2 weeks. The Keystone Cops were more diligent. If you're just joining us, this is Michael Goodwin from the New York Post. If the assassination plots involved Biden or any Democrat, the media would treat them as earth-shattering stories. Every rumor, speculation, and tidbit of information would be blasted out in breathtaking fashion about a national security crisis. Republicans would be lashed with harsh denunciations about overheated political rhetoric and accused of sparking violence. Really, the media, only one they attacked on the political assassination attempt was Trump. But I'll continue. But when Dems and the media repeatedly declared Trump a threat to democracy and that he narrowly avoids death, and when a foreign power also assigns an agent to kill him, the page is quickly turned. There is no outrage towards Iran, nor does the media express any curiosity about why Iran wants to kill Trump, but not Biden. The reason is obvious, but to spell it out, it would be to expose Biden's appeasement policies. Recall that Trump droned Iran's terror chief and put tough sanctions on the mullah's oil, while Biden lifted the sanctions and keeps trying to bribe Iran to rejoin the failed nuclear pact that Trump scuttled. Even after Iran lost its terror proxy on Israel, and the groups killed 3 American service members in Jordan, wounded others in Iraq, and took American hostages in Israel, Biden pulls his punches and demands Israel do the same. Then came Friday's report that Iran is using fake news sites and other online activity to interfere in the fall election. Not until the third paragraph does the AP note that U.S. officials have previously hinted that Iran particularly opposes former President Donald Trump. A more honest way to write that same story would be to say up front that Iran wants to help elect Harris. That's how it should be written if Iran were trying to help elect Trump. Here's another comparison. If J.D. Vance was accused of stolen valor by his former military comrades, would the media circle the wagons around him the way they are protecting Tim Walz against the same charges? The question answers itself. Sadly, even tragically, there's nothing new in the media jihad against Trump. It started in 2016 and hasn't stopped. The big outlets tried to drag Hillary Clinton over the finish line but couldn't do it. So many newsrooms, so many tears. In 2020, they were happy to let Biden hide in his basement. They knew then he was in decline, but believed it better to have a decrepit Democrat in the White House than an evil Trump. During his tenure, Biden set a modern record for the fewest press conferences and interviews. It should have been treated as a scandal, but even as Biden ignored them, reporters ignored his cognitive decline. When the president scolded the press for mild criticism, they remained loyal to his reelection. He said publicly his son Hunter Biden did nothing wrong, and they didn't bother to note that it was improper for a president to comment on a case pending before his Justice Department. He let it be known he wanted Trump prosecuted and thrown in jail, which should have been met with thunderous outrage, but instead nothing but crickets. Actually, it wasn't crickets. There was a very loud applause because that's what the media wants as well. They stuck with Biden until it was clear he would lose, then flipped on a dime and led the charge to replace him. They didn't know who Barack Obama, Nancy Pelosi, and the mega donors would replace him with. They didn't care. Any Democrats who increased the odds of beating Trump would do. The judge from reports about Harris's joyful campaign, many in the media are giddy that she is generating so much enthusiasm and, according to polls, is now beating Trump. That makes it extra delusional for anyone, including him, to believe the press will jeopardize her chances by holding the two candidates to the same standards. If Trump is going to win, he'll have to do it the way he did in 2016, despite the media. And I thought that was such a good piece. That's what I wanted to pass along to you from Michael Goodwin. We've got so much more to talk about. A lot of comments coming in. Stay with us. This is, Frankly Speaking, here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. A couple comments from viewers. Please tell me why anyone would vote for a nominee that doesn't speak to the people and show us what they stand for. Influencers and Hollywood can't defend our republic. What is her plan? Yeah, there are no answers there because she has not put her policy up on her website either. Another comment from a different viewer. In a commercial, Harris said she would fix the economy. I'd love to know what she would do to fix the mess she herself has helped to create. Good point. I thought the media was supposed to be unbiased. Obviously, this is not true. Clearly, they're biased. They have been for quite some time. I mean, the New York Times saying all bets are off. Nothing's off limits in their stated goal to defeat Donald Trump. So, yes, there is the bias there. There has been for quite some time. It's crystal clear. And you can just see it. Watch the interview with J.D. Vance and the hate and disdain for him and Republican policies. But I'll continue. After weird, the new Democrat push word is joy. Yes, her campaign is joyous. Joy. Trump said his campaign was hacked by hostile foreign actors. That's true. Former President Trump's campaign said Saturday in a statement that it had been hacked, going back to that point about Iran. Politico reported early Saturday that it had received emails from an anonymous account which documents from inside Trump's campaign operation. Quote, these documents were obtained illegally from foreign sources hostile to the United States, intended to interfere with the 2024 election and sow chaos throughout our democratic process, said a Trump campaign spokesperson. On Friday, a new report from Microsoft found that Iranian hackers broke into the account of a high-ranking official on the U.S. presidential campaign in June of 2024, which coincides with the close timing of President Trump's selection of a vice presidential nominee. This comes after recent reports of an Iranian plot to assassinate President Trump around the same time as the Butler, PA tragedy. The Iranians know that President Trump will stop their reign of terror, just like he did in his first 4 years in the White House. Any media or news outlet reprinting documents or internal communications are doing the bidding of America's enemies and doing exactly what they want. Well, I could see them publishing it anyway. So Harris remains mum, as we mentioned, as she refuses to do any press since, again, being given the nomination to be president of the United States for the Democrat Party, not having received one vote from anybody, I should say, and yet the media is not concerned. This is from David Hersani. It actually came out on Saturday, but the past month has likely been the most eventful in American political history. Yet the two top officials of the most powerful nation in the world won't answer any genuine questions. 3 weeks have passed since Joe Biden was pushed out of the 2024 presidential race over deteriorating physical and mental abilities, and he has yet to publicly clarify with any specificity, well, I think I said that wrong, why he took this unprecedented step or why. If he's incapable of campaigning for the presidency, he's fit to serve out his term in the White House. Then again, not one journalist in the corporate or legacy media has explained how Biden's obvious senility could turn from a democracy-corroding MAGA misinformation operation into an accepted reality in a single day. If they were fooled for 3 years, how can we trust them? If they weren't fooled and they didn't tell us, how can we trust them? Well, we can't, because they're back at it. The Democrats' new presidential candidate, who's never won a single primary vote, might have been crowned but hasn't given a real interview or even a political statement since Democrat bigwigs pushed Biden aside. In a functioning liberal democracy, this would be pretty big news. The last time the Vice President of the United States had a press conference was December of 2023. The last time she sat down with any media was June 24th when she was interviewed by none other than MSNBC's Morning Joe, which I can see that happening again. Before that, there was the interview with Drew Barrymore, which might be the most cringe-worthy display of fawning in recorded history. What is the incentive for her to take more questions? A person close to Harris's campaign asked Politico. She's getting out exactly the message she wants to get out. Indeed, it's quite the paradox. The media continue to baby Kamala and get her message out to the public, so Kamala doesn't feel the least bit of urgency in clarifying her record. If they were so inclined, the navel-gazing media would probably get Kamala out of her shell by doing some honest deep dives into her history and positions. In her lack of transparency, were a daily top-of-the-fold story, she would be compelled to speak. Say what you will about Trump, but he's done scores of interviews and pressers over the past few months, many of them with antagonistic venues. Kamala hasn't spoken to a hostile outlet in years. She won't even take questions from her fans. Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, is compelled to answer questions about a throwaway comment he made on a podcast before he was even in the Senate. Kamala just sends her minions to walk back major policy positions that would fundamentally affect every American. She staked out these radical positions only a few years earlier while running for this same exact office. Kamala isn't triangulating her views for a general election. She's effectively negating an entire political history through press releases. Kamala, for instance, says she no longer supports banning all air travel, meat, and combustible engines. That's nice. Kamala says she no longer believes in decriminalizing illegal border crossing. Good. The media treat her new claims as indisputable. No questions asked, no explanations given. Is Kamala still going to try to ban semi-auto rifles through an executive order? Does she believe all Americans should end up in the same place no matter how hard they work? Does she support defunding the police? We have no clue. Most of the media hackery is driven by partisanship. Some of it is also driven by access. There are practical concerns for journalists. Any reporter who truly challenges Kamala are sure to find themselves in the outs. This is why we need a press, not just an outlet, to take their professional responsibilities seriously. Because right now, they do not. Instead, the same people who gaslit the nation, concealing the brittle state of the president for years, not just an abdication of their profession, but also the responsibility as citizens, are now ensuring the voters won't be subjected to countless swirling, mind-bending, tall tales and nonsensical stories. And I'd thank them for it if she weren't running for president. All right, we got to take another short break. When we come back, Nick Pelham from the Steuben County Fair, which opens today with harness racing. So we'll hear from Nick here in just a moment. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We're broadcasting from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street, and this is the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of our program. And we're being joined again, just like last year, by Nick Pelham. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Yes, thank you. It's always a pleasure to come in and talk about the fair.
And we want to talk about the fair, and I want to make clear, this is pre-recorded, so people see the rain in the background. This is not on Monday. We're going to be talking about Monday, today, the day it actually airs, which is the start, the kickoff of the 205th year of the Steuben County Fair with everybody's favorite, harness racing.
Absolutely. I mean, and horse race is what Bath was founded on.
Yeah.
So harness racing has always been a big part of the fair in the area and stuff, and we're very pleased to have the New York State Sire Stakes back again this year.
That's great. And I would tell people it's a fun event. I used to go every year, but that's not what you think of as a typical fair, because the fair fun, kicks off on Tuesday.
Correct. Yep. Tuesday will be our first official day with all the livestock shows. All exhibit buildings will be open. All the food vendors will be up and running. The carnival will not start until Wednesday, like it has the last couple of years. But everything else will be going. The ground acts and everything. Oscar the Robot, the racing pigs, our petting zoo will be up and running. So there's all kinds of fun things to come and do and see at the fair. And there's no admission fee to the fair on Tuesday.
Oh, wow. That's perfect. A great way to kick off it's so synonymous with summer. Now, I know summer's winding down, but this is what people think about when they think about summer, the fair.
Absolutely, yep. Yeah, and unfortunately, it does kind of mark the end of summer.
Whoa. Enough on that. That went quick, didn't it?
Yeah,
summer went quick. So I should ask you this right off the bat here. How's the planning going?
Good, very good. Yep, things are in place. Everything's basically we kind of go through the motions when it gets to this time of year. It's just putting out the garbage cans and the pens that are out, but everything's all done. So we're already planning the 206th fair at this point.
Isn't that wild?
It is.
So you spent pretty much the full year working on it.
Absolutely, yep. Yeah, to get everything organized and the acts and stuff booked and everything. Yeah, you have to stay about a year ahead.
Oh, yeah. Is there anything new this year that we should look out for?
Main thing is our petting zoo is back. We didn't have the petting zoo last year. We were
right.
able to secure them again for this year. The other new thing we have on Tuesday, the Daughters of the American Revolution are doing a salute to the veterans.
Oh, that's great.
Tuesday afternoon in the grandstand, and that's a free event as well. So it'd be fun. We've got some dignitaries coming for that and things. So we'll have some stuff planned for them.
And there's so many things. So when did it become that demolition derbies are the main thing? People love them.
Yeah, that's been like that ever since I can remember.
Yeah.
And the smashing and the crashing, everybody comes out to see little Johnny smash up his car and stuff. And yeah, it's good fun. And the people that do it, I mean, they're actually kind of like professionals at this. And yeah, they spend a lot of time building the cars and puts on a great show for everybody.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I think we talked about this last year. Is there a lawnmower demolition derby?
Yep, Tuesday is Lawnmower Day in the grandstand. So we start out with our Patriot Series lawnmower tractor pull. And when we say lawnmowers, there are stock lawnmowers that look like lawnmowers, and then it goes right up to the V8 mini rods that are like little dragster-looking things with small block Chevys on them that put on a great show. And so that starts at 6, and at 7 o'clock we switch over and run our demolition derby with the lawnmowers, which is great fun. There's a couple of groups that they get together and they build these things, and like I say, it's really fun to watch. It's quite comical to watch them go out there.
Well, it seems like it's such fun. I really want to see the lawnmower demolition derby, because what you picture in your head seems like it could get pretty wild.
Oh, it does. Yeah, they do have to build some protection around their ankle areas and stuff, and you have to take the rules are once the lawnmower starts, you have to take the battery out of it. So if the lawnmower tips over or stalls, then you're out.
Oh, interesting.
Yep.
Wow. And you have a rodeo?
Yep, rodeo on Wednesday. The Broken Bee Rodeo is coming back with their Bulls and Barrels series, and there'll be 4 events with bull riding, barrel racing, probably be some team roping, breakaway roping for the girls, things like that.
And is this new? Did you have the monster truck show?
No? Yep, we've had the monster truck show for several years. Yep, we've got Plain Crazy and Crazy Train coming back. We do have one additional monster truck, and then we're going to have 4-wheeler racing included with that as well.
So when you have the demolition derbies, whether lawnmower or regular car, you've got the monster truck show. How do you clean up? after these events?
It's a fair amount of work. Yep.
Yeah.
I have a fantastic crew behind me, and we just all pitch in and work good together and things and get things put back together for the next event.
Yeah, because that seems like that would be tough getting in the morning and seeing the pure destruction.
Oh yeah, it is a little discouraging when you come in the morning and see all that. And like I say, we get it cleaned up pretty quick and move right on to the next event.
And you had mentioned the Daughters of the American Revolution, and there's another part to this. We talked to Griffin Bates last week, I believe it was, and he's the Steuben County, the newish Steuben County historian. We're talking about the historic part, like we said, the 205th year of the Steuben County Fair, and there's also the historical landmarks throughout the grounds.
Oh, correct. I mean, right down to our office that they originally built on those grounds in 1843, and they called it the Gatehouse. Most people think it was a house that we converted to an office, and it wasn't. It was built specifically for that purpose. And then our main exhibit hall up on the hill, that was built that same year. And we have our one-room schoolhouse, the Pioneer Museum that was built there to commemorate the pioneers. And I believe that the logs were donated by members of the Ag Society at that time, and all of them are autographed on the inside. So it's fun to come down and look around, try to find the signatures on those.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we're deep in history there at the fairgrounds.
Well, and there's so much to do too. That's one of my favorite things because I'm not doing rides. I might play a couple games, but I just like going to the various booths. Like I'm going to be at the Republican booth on Friday, right? But you go over and there's so many things you can buy. You end up. My favorite thing is I get a root beer, of course, and watch the pig races. Is that everybody's favorite?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the pig races, they've been there for over 20 years, and they draw a crowd. Every time that horn goes off, the grounds empties right out, and everybody goes to watch the pig races. The Rosers, they are the elite in the pig racing industry, and they just do a fabulous job for us.
You cannot miss it. If you're going to the fair, you have to check out the pig races. And after all these years seeing them, probably every year since I was a child, you still laugh the whole time.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, the pigs change, the names change, the act changes a little bit, but it's still, and then when they bring out the Orient Express, that is really the highlight of the pig races.
We last week we were talking with former Congressman Joe Sompolinski on the show, and we were talking about the Steuben County Fair, and that's the first thing you see the excitement because, like me, he grew up with it. The excitement of talking about we probably spent about 10 minutes talking about during a live interview, mind you, about the pig races. That's just how much fun it is. So when you get there, I mean, you're so busy. But is there something you look forward to specifically?
It's the kids, the animal exhibits and stuff. You know, they work so hard all year long on these projects, stuff to come and show at the fair. And then the highlight of that is also on Saturday with our livestock sale. This will be our first youth livestock sale. It's all inclusive. We have a junior ag society that's active, FFA, 4-H. Anybody's welcome to come as long as they're under age 21. They can show in our youth classes and sell in the sale.
Oh, that's great. Is there any, do you think any hidden treasures that people don't know about? See, I think it's the historic that we already talked about, but do you think there's anything that people should?
The whole thing, the whole experience.
Yep. For someone that hasn't attended, which I find that hard to believe after 205 years, do you have any tips for people attending?
Just come and spend the day. There is so much to see and do. It's a great experience, and get into the exhibit halls and stuff, and the upstairs of what we call the fair house is where all of our competitive exhibits are. Everything from needlework, photography, culinary, everything is judged on Monday, so it's all there for Tuesday for everybody to see. And it's great to see the community come together and bring the stuff to show and to receive the ribbons and premium monies.
And again, it starts today with harness racing, and then some of the fair fun starts on Tuesday, and then the rides and games on Wednesday.
Exactly. Correct. Yep. Coleman Brothers Shows will be back with their fantastic rides and games and some of the culinary treats that they bring with them, and that'll open up at 1 o'clock on Wednesday. So when you're so busy during all this, do you ever have a chance to get to just enjoy it and take it all in? Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Usually in the afternoon there's a little lull, and I can wander around and stuff. But I enjoy seeing all the people and stuff, and I'm never too busy to stop for a second. There's times where I'm busier than others, but I always make it a point if somebody hollers out my name or has a question or something, I jump right in and help them out with anything they need. Now, what's your Monday look like? Monday is just we have the harness racing, so there's a little work there and stuff keeping the. No, I meant the next Monday. Oh, the next Monday when it's all over but the showering. The next Monday is bad. That is really the worst day of fair week because everything has to start getting packed up and put away. All the pens taken down, barns cleaned out and stuff. But we're pretty good at it. We pretty much have the grounds back to normal in about 3 days. Great. Well, Nick, thanks so much for being on the show. Best of luck. It starts today, folks. Again, you're seeing the rain in the background and all that, but we pre-record this, so it starts today. Find out more at SteubenCountyFair.org. Nick, thanks for being on the show. No problem. It's a pleasure. And it's going to be a great week for the fair, and so come down and enjoy us. Mid-70s, it looks like in the weather forecast. It'll be perfect fair weather. Beautiful. Good luck. Great. Thank you. All right. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us.
And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Thank you so much to Nick Pelham for being a part of the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of our program, and I hope that everybody can make it out to the Steuben County Fair. If you do, let me know. I will be there on Friday. A comment from a viewer: real and unbiased reporting is no longer in the media mind and should not be called news, but should instead be referred to as opinion. Yes, and I believe we saw that if you happen to watch the interviews with J.D. Vance over the weekend. I believe that was crystal clear about the bias. Kristen Fleming, and she had this the other day, and I don't want to get too much into it, but she talks about the Democrats' childish obsession with Mamala and Daddy Walz, that it is beyond bizarre. Tim Walz is a dad an entire generation wish they had instead of the one they lost to Fox News, said one viral tweet. What back then could have been brushed off as Drew Barrymore's own well-documented mommy issues has now become the overwhelming dominant sentiment of the left. Their mission is to elect Ma and Pa America, someone to hug them and soothe them. As Liz Whitmer, the sister of Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, wrote, so it will be a contest between Democrats with serious cool parent vibes who would totally pick you up in the middle of the night to get you home safely versus the people they warned you about. When did we all become so childish and submissive? We are supposed to be electing leaders who can stare down foreign despots, clean up a crisis at the border, ease inflation, and make 15 tough decisions in a day, not validate our feelings. This universe of neediness and imagined intimacy reveals a deep delusion of our unhealthy political culture. Elected officials, perfect strangers, are not your family, and your family is way more important than some narcissist with a government pension. And I thought that line was so impactful. And when did we become so unserious? After all, as Walz on the recent White Dudes for Harris Zoom call said, quote, one person's socialism is another person's neighborliness. Okay. Now, according to ex-speaker Kevin McCarthy, he believes, well, let me quote him exactly. Quote, if you're watching the campaign now, some of Obama's key people, such as David Plouffe and others, are now working on the campaign. You're getting the Obamas shifting from running the White House to now running the campaign. Obama's former top advisors have had major roles with Team Harris. Obama's Attorney General Eric Holder helped handle the vetting process for Harris's selection of a running mate for vice president. Harris also hired Plouffe, Obama's campaign manager in 2008, and later one of the top White House advisors, as a senior campaign aide. The political operative Plouffe has advised TikTok and Uber too. In addition, Harris has tapped Stephanie Cutter, who worked as a deputy campaign manager for Obama's 2012 re-election, as her campaign's senior advisor for strategy messaging. Now, cartel drones have taken air control of the U.S. border as Kamala Harris cackles and Joe Biden dodders, says the New York Post editorial board. Cartels have started an air war barely south of the U.S. border. How long before it spills over? Thanks to the Biden-Harris border erasure. As with terrorism, it's a question not of if, but when. I know we got a lot of things we've got to get to. I'm going to move kind of fast, but John Bolton, not a fan of Trump, but you remember John Bolton. Dennis Miller used to call him the nuclear walrus because of his mustache. He wrote an op-ed over the weekend saying the turmoil the Biden-Harris administration left behind in Afghanistan is responsible for the increased threats of terrorism worldwide, including the plot against Taylor Swift's concert in Austria. According to investigators, Al-Qaeda, the Islamic State, and ISIS-K, an ancient name for much of Central Asia, including Iran and Afghanistan, all had a hand in radicalizing the teens who planned the concert mass murder. So what his thought is, the Biden-Harris failure in Afghanistan is making the world a much more dangerous place. Of course, it was precisely our presence that made us safe, just as our withdrawal has made us more vulnerable. In 2020, Paul thought it laughable to say it was not time to leave Afghanistan. No one should be laughing now. Now, I've been talking about this all morning. Did you happen to see, a couple questions, were you affected by the storms? Did you happen to see the interviews that J.D. Vance gave over the weekend? He fired back at Brianna Keilar at CNN. Keilar said Vance may be an imperfect messenger on the issue of stolen valor. You remember that. I brought that to you on the program on Friday. Because we have, as you introduced him, as a combat correspondent, which is what Vance's title was, Keilar said. But when you dig a little deeper into that, he was a public affairs specialist, someone who did not see combat, which certainly the title combat correspondent kind of gives you a different impression. So he may be the imperfect messenger on that. Vance took to Twitter, formerly Twitter X, said, "Brianna, this is disgusting, and you and your entire network should be ashamed of yourself. When I got the call to go to Iraq, I went. Tim Walz said he carried a gun in war. Did he? No, it was a lie." And of course, reporters are not calling him on that. They're not calling Harris on it. "I served in a combat zone. I never said that I saw a firefight myself. But I've always told the truth about my Marine Corps service. That's the difference." Now, CNN has not responded for a comment. Vance campaign accuses CNN of ignoring its own scoop to cover up for Tim Walz's military record. The Vance campaign hit back Sunday following a tense exchange the GOP vice presidential pick had with anchor Dana Bash. You may have saw that. It went viral. They talked about Tim Walz's military record, accusing the journalist of ignoring her own network's reporting. During the sit-down interview that aired Sunday morning, Bash defended Kamala Harris's running mate, pointing out that Walz filled his retirement paperwork a month before the National Guard announced public plans to deploy to Iraq. Walz, 60, has been accused of retiring from a commanding role in the National Guard in 2005 to avoid being deployed to active war zone in Iraq. But on CNN last night, Dana, one of the people who was actually in charge with him, said they knew that they were going to deploy in Iraq in fall of 2004. So he knew he was going to Iraq, and he decided to quit. CNN, ignoring its own scoop from the evening before, shows how far the mainstream media is willing to go to cover up Kamala and the Democrats. But voters aren't stupid, and they're sick and tired of the mainstream media lying to them, said Vance. Tim Walz falsely labeled himself a retired command sergeant major in his congressional radio ad. A radio ad from 2006 featuring Tim Walz falsely labeling himself as a retired command sergeant major during his initial run for U.S. Congress. In the ad, which was unearthed on August 2nd, prior to Kamala Harris selecting him as her running mate, Tim Walz referred to himself as Sergeant Major before going on to discuss how his time spent operating artillery led to hearing loss. "My name is Tim Walz, and I'm running for Congress here in the southern Minnesota for several important reasons. But today I'd like to tell you about one issue that's very personal to me. I'm a retired command sergeant major in the Minnesota National Guard," he said. The ad went on to describe how operating artillery led to hearing loss in one ear that required surgery to fix, driving home a campaign message about the importance of health care. The New York Times has confirmed he suffered hearing loss in a report over the weekend. Walz's use of the rank retired command sergeant major since his run for U.S. Congress has drawn considerable criticism from members of the military community with claims of stolen valor. Walz was not permitted to use that title after retiring when he failed to complete the final and necessary coursework. Walz listed on his official biography a higher military rank than the one he ultimately retired with, drawing criticism from some veterans. The list goes on and on, but the media is very happy to continue along with this cover-up. They just have to see this get into the barn in the next 3 months, less than 3 months. They're not upset. There's no press conferences, no interviews. And a matter of fact, when she does give an interview to kind of quell the talk of her not giving interviews, it'll be on a Morning Joe or it'll be on a very friendly outlet. Retired National Guard members alleges that Walz left his unit in a CNN interview. This is what the Vance campaign was referencing. "He went around me." According to the former Sergeant Major, Walz was at each of these meetings. Julian also asserted that in the lead up to the deployment, Walz assured him that he was going to join the battalion in Iraq. Walz's military career has been scrutinized since he was announced as the running mate. Has he really been scrutinized or just by the conservative outlets? Because this is coming from Fox News. But you know the scandal this would be if it were Vance lying about his military service. We've got a few other things we've got to get to. I know we're already getting ready to wrap things up and call it a day here on Frankly Speaking. So get those last minute comments in, and we'll be right back after this short commercial break. Please stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV, Big Fox. And we are back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Former Minnesota Senate Majority Leader Paul Gazelka criticized Walz over the weekend, saying in an interview for Fox News, "My concern for him as a leader, number one, is he's terrible in crisis. And then how he spends money, it's like he has no sense of what the value of a dollar is. And they just spend money until they go into debt. And so people need to pay attention." The mayor of Minneapolis, Mayor Frey, said to the governor, "I need your help. I need the Guard." Gazelka told the outlet, and that's when the governor just sat on his hands. He froze. He didn't do anything. To that point about spending, Walz's $250 million state program to feed hungry kids fraudulently spent on luxury goods, overseas real estate. This coming from Fox. Between 2022 and 2024, 70 people have been charged in connection with a fraud scheme that resulted in a $250 million loss from the Minnesota Department of Education's Feeding Our Future program, a federally funded meal assistance plan meant to help give free meals to eligible kids and adults. At least $250 million was stolen by fraudsters, said Billy Glenn. The question, of course, came up: how did the State Department of Education let out $250 million out the door to people who were later convicted of defrauding the program? The legislative auditor took this on a one-on-one projects and did this report looking at how the department oversaw a single one of those nonprofits involved. Now, a Minnesota bar owner says that Tim Walz is evil. I think he's an evil man who overstepped his role as a governor. He took small businesses and ripped them up. He destroyed us. This is in reference to COVID policy. I had to leave the state to be able to legally work and make a living. The bar owner opened the Outpost Bar and Grill in Bay City, Wisconsin in March of 2022 after she said she was stripped of her license to operate Albee Drinkery in Lakeview and Froggy Bottoms River Pub and Lily Patio in Northfield. The new location is a solid hour drive from her home. I don't even know the name of our governor until he shut our state down. She said the shelter-in-place and business closure first went into effect in March of 2020. I did everything I was supposed to do. I wore my mask. I social distanced. I stayed home. But as the months wore on and the state slowly reopened, salons, bars, and restaurants remained under Walz's closure orders, which weren't completely lifted statewide until May of 2021. As I mentioned, Trump over the weekend promoted a false conspiracy that Harris has AI in her crowd, artificial intelligence, to make her crowd look bigger. Has anyone noticed that Kamala cheated at the airport? There was nobody at the plane, and she AI'd it and showed a massive crowd of so-called followers, but they didn't exist. We do have to take another short break and wrap things up. Get your last-minute comments in. Again, thank you to Nick Pelham for being on the program this morning. Really appreciate that. I hope that you can make it out to the Steuben County Fair. If you can, let me know. I'd love to hear how it went. As I said, I will be there Friday. I'll get you those exact times if you want to stop by and say hi at the Republican booth. I will be there to answer your questions. So that's on Friday. But again, I don't have the exact times in front of me, so I'll let you know later on. All right, keep those comments coming in. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Foxes, we are nearly through on the Monday morning edition of Frankly Speaking. And we are back. Our last segment of the Monday morning edition of Frankly Speaking. Thank you so much for joining us. A nice comment from a viewer here. Frank, thank you for another great show. Have an awesome day. Well, thank you. You have an awesome day as well, but that means I hope you didn't jinx me. I have 7 minutes to keep this show great. Thank you for the comment. Now the reporting. So the reporting, as we know, has been pro-Harris. Harris has so much momentum. She's doing great. Her and Walz are the mom and dad that you wanted, the cool mom and dad, et cetera, et cetera. Now you're having on the other side of the coin, not the media not focused on the fact that she will not give a press conference or that she has no policy up on her website. No, the focus is that Trump's campaign is falling apart. According to far-left Axios, who just recently laid off 10% of their workforce, said former Trump's advisors are deeply rattled by his meandering, mean, and often middling public performances since the failed assassination attempt. They're pleading with him to adopt a new hard-hitting stump speech to define Vice President Harris as liberal and weak, and praying he'll stop the kind of haphazardly improvising. Trump, who looked and felt a clear frontrunner heading into last month's Republican convention, has fumed, stewed, and stumbled in private and public ever since. Advisors are telling him Harris will grow her lead coming out of the Democrat convention, which begins a week from tomorrow, especially if they don't define her better and faster than just a week after the convention. It's already Labor Day. Trump is struggling to get past his anger, a top Republican source said. Trump's aides know he won't change, so they're focusing not on the need for him to change, but on the need to adapt his message to win. But he has to convince himself to leave the other garbage behind. The big picture, 3 weeks after Biden left the race, no longer does it look like Trump could win every swing state. No longer does he hold the advantage on crowd size and base fervor. Yes, to that viewer's comment, yes, I do know who that is. I can't mention it because it's on a competitive station. But yes, I am aware of that. Thank you. Florida Republicans tout 1 million voter edge over Democrats after years of stunning growth. The Sunshine State Republicans blew past a key milestone and are now touting a 1 million voter registration advantage over Democrats. The achievement, announced by the GOP Sunday, caps off a stunning transformation for a once quintessential battleground state where Democrats previously long held the advantage. Quote, "Our success goes beyond just numbers," said the state chairman, Evan Power. "It's about vision to make Florida the beacon of freedom for the rest of the world. In just 2018, Democrats had more than 250,000 more registered voters than Republicans, according to the Florida Division of Elections. Registered Republicans eclipsed them in late 2021 amid the party's growth during the COVID-19 pandemic. 6 years ago, registered Democrats outnumbered registered Republicans by almost 300,000, and Florida has never had more registered Republicans than Democrats in its history," wrote Governor Ron DeSantis. Now, Republicans outnumber Democrats by 1 million voters, which is a sea change that few thought possible, and contrary to the many predictions that Florida would become a blue state. Leadership matters, bold colors, not pale pastels. Now, a prominent Republican voice on foreign policy accused the Biden administration of burying Iran's threat against former President Trump following the hacking attack against the Trump campaign. Representative Michael Waltz, different name, Michael Waltz, contended that Biden administration is sending the wrong message to Tehran. "These plots from Iran are ongoing. And when Biden says nothing, Harris says nothing, the DOJ tries to bury it. What message does Iran get? They get that we can keep trying to take Trump out and have no consequences." He said this on Fox News' Sunday morning features. "They tried to hack his campaign, or did hack his campaign this week. They're trying to kill him. And we know from the intelligence community Iran doesn't want Trump back." On Saturday, the Trump campaign confirmed that it was a victim of a hack that Microsoft reported came from Iranian actors. Microsoft did not name the victim of the attack. Multiple media outlets, including Politico and the Washington Post, claimed to have received Trump campaign material that appeared to have been part of that hack. Information sent to those outlets included a 271-page document about Republican vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance that appeared to be vetting material on him based on publicly available information. Just going through the last couple minute things here. All right, that is about it. I think that does it. Let me look at my time. Yes, we are wrapping things up. Thank you for all the comments and all the waves this morning. We had a really good back and forth. I appreciate it. I want to thank Nick Pelham for being on the program. Nick is part of the Steuben County Fair, also part of the Steuben County Legislature. Well, we thank him for being on the program and telling us more about the fair. I hope everybody can make it out. It starts today with the harness racing. But what you think of is kind of the fair festivities, the races, or the rides and the games, that starts on Wednesday. On tomorrow's program, we'll be learning all about India Day here in Corning coming up on the 17th. That's this Saturday. As you see there, members, $10 if you're a member of the Southern Tier India Cultural Association. If you're not, $20. They have great food. It's a fun event. That's coming up this Saturday. Then on Wednesday, this is a big one. We're going to be talking with Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard. I know Jim Allard is one of everyone's favorite guests. If you have any questions for him, you can bring them up live during the show or get them to me ahead of time so we have a better opportunity to get to all of them. You see the number on the bottom of your screen. You can reach out at any time. But Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard will be our guest on Wednesday morning show, and that's just the beginning. I believe I have others, but again, I forgot my schedule this morning. So Jim Allard will be joining us on Wednesday. Do not miss the Steuben County Sheriff. But as I said, that number on the bottom of the screen is 24/7. Feel free to reach out at any time. I would love to hear from you. We get a lot of messages after the program as well, which I try my best to read them in the morning at the very beginning of the program starting at 6 a.m. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or criticisms, feel free to reach out at any time. And have a great day, everyone. And we will be back tomorrow morning, starting at 6 a.m. with Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We will see you tomorrow morning, bright and early. I look forward to it. Alrighty, have a great day, everyone.